Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the October 20th edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze some trips from the last week, looking for horses that might have encountered adversity and could be worth betting back when they run in the future. This week, we're looking back at last week at Belmont Park, and we've got three turf sprints to talk about, some races at 6 and 7 furlongs over those Belmont turf courses. Let's start with the race from last Thursday. October 14th, it's the fifth race from that Thursday card, a New York bred optional claimer going for 7 furlongs on the turf, 45,000. The optional claiming tag, nominators to other than is the allowance condition. Let's break these runners from the gate. We're going to focus on the number 1, Steelers Fan for Life. This is a horse going out for Leah Giarmati, who's coming off an 11-month layoff heading into this start. So we haven't seen him for quite some time. And you can see coming out of the starting gate, he breaks with the field, but it's just a little bit slow into stride. So he finds himself towards the back of the pack. That turns out to not be the place that you want to be in this 7 furlong event, though, because the two horses that you see out towards the front end, the number 9 Dancing Buck and the number 11 Call Me Harry, they are going to dominate this race on the front end. You can see it kind of visually happening as the entire field sort of comes together like an accordion. They're not going that quickly up front, and the entire field is really bunched up, tightly knit heading into the far turn. And as you see the fractions go up, this is a case where the fractions of Belmont actually are correct. 23 and 1, and they go over 46 to the half mile. That's really not going particularly fast at all for 7 furlongs over what was a very firm turf course this past week at Belmont Park. And you see Steelers Fan for Life second from the right, all the way back towards the tail end of the field on the rail. And his rider, Junior Alvarado, is going to get him into a little bit of trouble here. You see he's steadying a bit behind runners towards the back of the pack. Never really has his momentum broken, but he really can't start forward momentum because he's behind this wall of horses. You see Junior here barely riding him, and he's got some horses in his face, converging in front of him. He finally gets into the clear right here, and Junior's going to ask him for about the final eighth of a mile. But given the dynamics of the race, the way it was dominated on the front end, a horse like this really never had a chance to get into the race from being so far back in the early going. And also given the fact that he was coming off such a lengthy layoff, I think it's reasonable that he didn't have an explosive finish at the end of this race. This is a horse who can handle a variety of distances. He's run well at prices many times in the past, and I think we're going to see him move forward second off the layoff, whether he returns late in the Belmont meet or even at Aqueduct, because he's a horse that's pretty versatile with regard to distance, and he can get 2 turns going a mile and 16th. And he also is a horse who in the past has shown a lot more early speed than this. So I expect him to take a step forward second off the layoff when we see him again later this fall. Let's move on to a race from Friday's card at Belmont. October 15th, this is race 7, actually the feature race that day, the Glen Cove Stakes, going 7 furlongs on the Widener turf course for the 3-year-old fillies. Let's break these runners from the gate. And I'm going to focus on a horse that doesn't necessarily have any traffic trouble or anything of that sort, but just a horse who finds herself in a really unfavorable pace scenario. And that is the eventual second place finisher, the number 7 Bay Storm. Again, this horse runs really well to be second in this race, but I want to highlight just how detrimental this fast pace was to her eventual finish, because the horse that's dueling for the lead with Bay Storm currently, the number 3 Caldi, you saw she was very aggressively ridden away from the gate to get that forward position. And Bay Storm, being a horse that likes to race aggressively herself, had no choice but to chase that foe. And Caldi is going to have absolutely nothing left at the end of this race after going so quickly on the front end. She's going to lose by 11 lengths. And take a look at where Bay Storm finishes in relation to Caldi in this race. Also take note of the fractions going up, 22 and 2 for the opening quarter. That's quick enough, but the half you're going to see go up in 44 and 2. Now compare that to the race we just watched from Thursday's card. Comparatively fast courses on both days, both very firm. These horses went almost 2 full seconds faster to the half mile than those older New York bred allowance horses we saw going the same distance. And now Bay Storm is taking over from Caldi at the top of the stretch, but she's about to get what appears to be swallowed up by the closers. But look at how game this filly is, trying to battle back as horses range up alongside of her at mid-stretch. The winner just kind of surprises her going past with a really nice turn of foot, but it looks like Bay Storm is going to finish off the board here at about mid-stretch, but she battles on so gamely to hold on to second place at the end of this race. And as I said, Caldi faded to be at the back of the pack after being involved in that fast pace. This race really was dominated by horses coming from farther behind. So I think Bay Storm ran the best race here. If you you look at the time form US speed figures numbers that do take pace into account, she got a time form US speed figure of 118, which is very high for a 3-year-old filly and actually 7 points higher than the winner of this race, who got everything in her favor in terms of the pace here. So I think Bay Storm is just really in great form right now for Jonathan Thomas, and based on how well she ran going 7 furlongs in this race, I would not be opposed to seeing her stretch out a little further, maybe trying a mile at Aqueduct in the future if there's a race for her there. But when you see a horse show this kind of staying power going 7 furlongs, they usually are ones that can get at least a mile in the future. So Bay Storm, definitely a horse to watch out for in stakes company next time. Let's finish things up with a race from Saturday's card at Belmont, October 16th. It was race 2 that day, a New York bred maiden special weight for the 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the turf, actually the 2-year-old fillies. Let's break these runners from the gate. We're going to focus on a first-time starter, the number 2 Buffalo Dancer. This is a John Terranova trainee who went off at a big price, 38-1, but note that she breaks pretty well from the rail. She's on terms with the leaders briefly as they come out of the gate, but her rider, Eric Cancel, is going to show no aggression to hold his position here, and she is going to get shuffled back and steadied repeatedly on the run down the backstretch. And I don't think her rider is doing her any favors here by just making no effort to hold the position, and she just continually, as you see, gets steadied, shuffled all the way back by the time they get to the far turn, where she winds up in last place. And even here inside of the second to last runner, she's a little bit green and she steadies again there. And now she's about 2 to 3 lengths behind the penultimate runner in this field. So for a horse that broke towards the top of the pack, she was actually third coming out of the starting gate after the first few strides. Somehow, because she just wasn't ridden aggressively in those opening strides, she finds herself all the way at the back of the pack by the time they get to the quarter pole. And at this point, Eric Cancel is not going to make that much effort. He just kind of lightly urges her home, not really asking for much. But at the bottom of the screen, watch those chicklets. She's the number 2 horse. You can't really see her because she's off the picture right now, but she's actually finishing this race at the same rate as the leader. She's really not losing any ground, and you'll see her come across the line. She's actually moving at a much faster rate than the horses that are fading ahead of her. If you look at Trackus numbers, Buffalo Dancer actually ran her final 1/8 mile in 12 flat. So it's not like she stopped running at the end of this race, even though she was basically not being asked for anything through the stretch here. And she went off at a big price, as I said, 38-1, but the starter of War Dancer, she has plenty of turf pedigree. Her dam showed some turf ability, and John Terranova, not a guy that always has his runners cranked up to win first time out. And just given the trip that she got and the ride she got, she really had no chance to be successful on this occasion. Hopefully she got a good learning experience from facing all of that traffic trouble on the backstretch, and maybe she'll have a rider switch next time. And I think that she's one that may have a lot more ability than that last place finish would indicate first time out. So she's one to look for at Aqueduct if she comes back at this same level, or perhaps even drops into a maiden claiming race. I just think this is a horse that you're supposed to give another shot to second time out, given the fact that she just really had no chance based on the trip in her debut. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. Remember, if you want to follow these horses in the future, you can add them to your horse watch on DRF.com. Just add them to a list and you'll get email notifications when these horses run back in the future. Thanks for tuning in this week, and make sure to catch future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.